Welcome to the 6th Annual Food Justice Film Festival, presented by the Center for Biological Diversity. I'm Linda Rico, Food Justice Film Festival Coordinator with the Center. I'm so happy to be joined today by Leah Penniman, author of Farming While Black, farmer and co-owner of Soulfire Farm, and main subject of the film Farming While Black. Thank you so much for joining me today, Leah.
Thank you so much for having me. It's truly an honor.
So in the film, we learn that the beautiful Soulfire Farm is 80 acres large and that all of you care for 100 different varieties of fruits, vegetables, and herbs using Afro-Indigenous methods for growing. Can you share more about these methods and why they're important to agricultural heritage and the Soulfire Farm values?
Absolutely. So when we first started Soulfire Farm, we started it in response to a community need in the south end of Albany. We were living in under food apartheid, where it's very difficult to get fresh vegetables, and folks are struggling with diet-related illnesses like kidney failure and heart disease. And so when our neighbors found out we knew how to farm, they really asked us to please start a farm that would bring fresh food to the south end of Albany. So first and foremost, what's important is that we see food as a human right and not as a privilege. And so the tomatoes, the okra, the molochia, the collard greens, the onions, those are for our people, right? And so that's why we grow so many varieties of fresh, nutritious, healthy food. And then the way that we grow that food, the fact that we're taking care of this land using our Afro-Indigenous methods, things that capture carbon like no-till and perennial polycultures and raised beds and mulches and cover crops. We do that because we see that the earth is not just a commodity to be extracted from, but a relative. And we have a sacred obligation to tend to the biodiversity, to tend to the soil organic matter, to do our part to prevent climate change. And so all of that feeds into the way that we do agriculture and then also what happens with the agricultural products.
Amazing. How have these growing practices helped Soulfire continue to thrive? Like, has it helped just keep everything healthy, with produce? Like, how has it helped it keep going?
Well, I'll tell you this one story. In 2013, we had a very severe tropical storm, possibly the worst tropical storm on record, certainly in my lifetime. And there was this moment in the middle of the night when we heard what sounded like a Mack truck just barreling through the forest. And it was not a Mack truck, it was water. It was a river just newly formed, rushing through the forest, threatening to wipe out all of our crops.
Mhm.
And so we woke up our, then young children in the middle of the night. We went out with shovels. We started digging trenches to divert the water. And in the morning, the news reports were coming in of all the farms that had lost their topsoil, they'd lost their crops, the roads were washed out, people were stranded. But our soil was just gently percolating the water, and we
Wow.
didn't lose any crops. And so the reason that we didn't lose any crops is because using these methods of raised beds, of adding a lot of organic matter to the soil,
Mhm.
increase infiltration and decrease erosion. So they help heal the climate, but they also mitigate the impacts of extreme weather events. So that was a very tangible example of when we saw, okay, this farming methodology is going to help us be more resilient in the face of climate catastrophe.
Wow, that's incredible. So fortunate. Oh my goodness. Leah, you highlight in your book and in the film the oppressive history of Black farmers in the United States, with Black-owned farms going from a height of 14% in 1910 to less than 2% today. Can you share more about how this decline in Black-owned farms affected the Black community in terms of access to food?
Absolutely. So it's a really storied and troubled history of Black land loss. We know that the advent of Black agriculture in the United States, even before the United States, was its own independent country, was in chattel slavery. But the folks who were kidnapped, the 12 million people who ended up in the United States who were kidnapped for their agricultural expertise, right? Not just because of a labor need, but because they were the experts in rice growing, in growing the crops that thrive in the warm South, which is a really different climate than Western Europe. And
Mhm.
so the agricultural wealth of this country was built on the backs of the enslaved African people. But even after the end of chattel slavery in 1865, with the Emancipation Proclamation, with the liberation of people from that formal slavery, there were so many other forms of oppression that ensued that were similar. When you look
Mhm.
at sharecropping and the rates of very, very high poverty and malnutrition,
Right.
tenant farming, and then something called convict leasing, where Black folks were criminalized during the post-Civil War period, Reconstruction period, and the prisons just filled, with Black people for things like loitering, which is standing
Hmm.
around, who were then leased
Right.
back to the plantation. So it was very difficult to gain land in the first place, but our ancestors still managed, right, in the early 1900s to purchase almost 16 million acres of land, despite the broken promise of 40 acres and a mule. And there was a lot of violence toward those landowners for getting out of their quote unquote place in white supremacy.
Right.
We know the names of 4,000 people who were lynched. It drove the Great Migration when people fled the rural South. And then there were generations of governmental discrimination, the US Department
Hmm.
of Agriculture, as well as ongoing dispossession through taking advantage of heirs' property and harassing people off their land. So that's why we are where we are today, where we have such a low rate of Black land ownership in this country.
Hmm. You kind of mentioned it in the first question, how Soulfire has been able to take part in the food justice movement. Can you expand a little bit more on how Soulfire takes part in the community that way and bringing food justice to the surrounding communities?
Absolutely. And they bring it to us too. I mean, so we work in three main areas. One is that we do grow a lot of food and medicine, and we distribute it at no cost in our local community through doorstep delivery. That's really the foundation, the bedrock of our work. We're a farm first and
It's
foremost.
amazing.
Our second area of work is that we train, equip, and inspire a rising generation of Black and Brown farmers. So we're working with people in our week-long programs, our day-long programs, our 18-month fellowship, building gardens for city folks in their backyards. So we have a whole lot of educational programming. And then our third area of work is broader in terms of advocating for systems change. That means advocating for the right laws that protect the earth and farm workers, advocating for fair institutions, trying to educate the public. Even this conversation, a lot of people might not have heard of food justice or
Right.
thought about Black land law. So how do we
Mhm.
activate the community to stand up for what's right and to get involved?
Right. Exactly. Looking back and thinking of all the dedication that everyone at Soulfire Farm has put in to continue to create this sense of community, what have been some of your favorite gatherings that you all have done?
Oh my goodness, some of them actually right now. So this past weekend, we had a wonderful gathering called Plantas y Pueblos, which was
Nice.
for predominantly Spanish-speaking gardeners and farmers to have a day of volunteering on the farm, but also participating in workshops where they learn to make herbal medicine and cyanotypes and eat delicious food together, share music together. So that was an example of just a really wonderful program with people of all ages here.
Mhm.
And then this coming weekend, we're involved in a massive beautiful lands back initiative with the Mohican Nation. Those are the
Nice.
indigenous people upon whose land
Hmm.
we work and live. And so we're involved in a land back work with them as well as seed rematriation. And we have a sacred pilgrimage this weekend of
Oh, that's
walking and
beautiful.
praying all across the region. So I'm really, folks are starting already to arrive from the
Yeah,
reservation in
how
Wisconsin.
exciting.
So yeah, there's always so much juicy goodness going on.
I know. I love looking at your website. I'm always like, okay, I gotta get over there. I'm all the way in
Yeah.
Tucson, Arizona, but I'm always like, I gotta get over there because I really want to see the farm
You're
and
invited.
take
We'd love
part.
to have
So, one of the underlying themes in this year's festival really highlights the importance of nurturing the younger generations who are interested in farming and establishing a relationship with the land. What advice do you have for young people, especially BIPOC youth, who want to get involved in their communities in this type of way?
you. So for the young people who want to get involved, I would say trust your heart and start small, right? The intersection of what the world needs and what makes you come alive, that's what you got to do. So you could start by helping out in your local community garden. You could start by learning to cook a recipe that your grandma made, maybe figuring out how to advocate to get some more fresh vegetables in the corner store. But there's so many ways to engage. And the important thing is just to start. Even if you start small, grab a friend, get involved, and you'll see how rewarding it is, and it will naturally grow from there.
That's amazing. Can you share your experience of doing this documentary? I mean, how did this kind of change? Did it change your life a little bit? Did it help Soulfire kind of bring more people in? What was your experience with this?
So my experience with the documentary, shout out Content Films and Mark Decena's leadership,
Mhm,
is we were very reluctant participants, to be honest. We were like, we're just trying to farm. I don't know about all these cameras. And they just kept coming back and wanting to be friends with us. And initially they wanted to do a short, and then they wanted to do a medium, then they wanted to do a full feature. And over time, we came to really just respect how much they cared about the work and how
mhm.
they wanted to portray the work in an authentic light that honored us and honored the movement. And I remember, asking them to do some really hard things. For example, when we started out, they wanted to do more of a biopic of Soulfire. And I was saying, we're not the only farm. We're part of a
Mhm.
movement. I really would feel
Right,
much more comfortable being part of a film that talked about some of the other farmers as well. And to their credit,
right.
even in the pandemic, they got Blain involved and they got Mama
Mhm.
Karen involved and really tried to
Yeah.
show the different ways, urban, rural, north and south, that this kind of movement is happening. And obviously there's
Mhm.
hundreds more farms, but you can only do so much in a film. So that was something that I was really happy about because it's important for
Mhm.
us that everyone recognizes it's a we thing. There's no one person
Yeah.
or one farm that is going to create a just food system. It has to be all of us together.
So, speaking of Miss Karen Washington, food justice activist, guerrilla gardener, farm owner of Rise and Root Farm in New York, um, she always loves to tell a story about how the tomato changed her life and inspired her to start growing her own food. And in tradition now, because I've asked everybody who I've interviewed for this film, but what is your fruit or vegetable that changed your life, and why? Why that one?
So for me, it was definitely the strawberry. And the reason is that my grandma, Brownie Lee McCullough, in blessed memory, she was a child of the Great Migration. So she had
Mhm,
to leave Rock Hill, South Carolina,
mhm.
come up to the urban streets of Boston. And you can take the girl out of the farm, but you can't take the farm out of the girl. You know what I'm saying? So she always had a little backyard garden. And I remember being a young child and helping her in her strawberry patch, which was my first experience of gardening. And strawberries are just magical. Like I remember peering under the leaves, and there's this bright red, sweet, juicy native berry almost before anything else is ready in June. They were so magical. And then we would make jam, and the smells would fill the house. I was like, what
I
is this
love
plant?
that.
So I still, to this day, strawberries are my favorite thing to grow. We grow so many strawberries. So probably more than other people are happy that we grow because, it's a lot of work to pick all those strawberries,
They're
but I love them.
delicious. So, Leah, what does the future of food justice for BIPOC people look like to you?
Oh, the future is so bright. And I'm saying that because hope is a practice, not a feeling. And
Mhm.
so, what we have to do each and every day is to behave like we're going to win. So, that means we get up, we
Yep.
tend to our communities, we tend to our lands, we grow food, we cook food, we share food,
Mhm.
we work towards just laws and policies and institutions. And every incremental step that we make along the way reduces suffering for our people and increases, joy and beauty and
Yeah.
health for our people. So the future is very bright.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And lastly, I want to leave space for you. I want to give you an opportunity to tell us about any new projects happening at Soulfire. I know you mentioned a really exciting one this weekend, but just, things that are going on and how can people support this type of work, whether it's supporting Soulfire directly or supporting work like this in their own communities.
Mm. Well, whatever we're doing at Soulfire Farm is always because the community has asked us to step up and do it. So this work with the Mohican Nation, we're just so honored to participate.
Yeah.
I'm also really, really excited about some of the local partnerships that we're deepening with the young people in our community, building gardens in behind churches and schools and getting the young folks involved. And the third thing that I'll say that I'm excited about is we finally finished after many
Mhm.
years construction on the campus,
Oh,
which means that
wow.
when we're not running Soulfire programs, we can allow other food justice, racial justice organizations to come and use the space. And that's
Mhm.
just such a blessing because people say time and again how nourishing and healing it is to be here on these lands while they're doing the
Absolutely.
good work, the
Mhm.
strategy work or the, board retreat work or whatever it is that they need to do. So that's
Yeah,
something that I'm super excited about as well. And as far
that's
as getting
amazing.
involved, check out our website, soulfirefarm.org. You can also follow us on the socials at Soulfire Farm, and we have volunteer days, we have action guides, we have all kinds of suggestions about where to put your resources. So definitely check us out and get involved.
You all do a great job of keeping things organized and up to date. I love the materials on your site. I'm really excited for people to go visit your site and to see all of this stuff. It's a lot of really great educational materials and ways to get involved. Very inspiring stuff.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Linda. I
Well, I
appreciate
want
that.
to say thank you so much again, Leah. I know you all are so busy right now. Thank you for sitting with me and taking this time. As a reminder to everyone who's watching, don't forget to sign up for this year's Food Justice Film Festival at foodjusticefilmfestival.com. The festival is totally free to watch and free to sign up. All four feature films anytime from October 23rd through the 26th. You can also catch all of our 2025 virtual interviews on the site all year long. Thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful day.